Hey, hey. You know what time it is? Woo! Get into it! Get into it! Yes! Oh, I thought I lost my earrings. Sorry. Alright. They are all here. Cool. Hi, y'all. I had to get my lips chapped because I was feeling a little chapped after the shower. Goodness gracious, my apologies. Let me fix this camera real quick. Now, that is a much more clear picture of me. Hi, y'all. It's Storytime with Chris. We are back with the Redwall series, and we are picking up where we left off last. The Redwall defenders are doing the best they can. I do not own the music that is being played, and it is being played from Fantasy Worlds, a YouTuber that also does some really cool ambient music medleys. And this is Lavender Town from Pokemon, which I don't think I've ever played a Pokemon medley, which any Pokemon fan knows that Lavender Town is where they have the memorial tower for all of the Pokemon that have passed on. And a lot of ghost-type Pokemon live in Lavender Town. Can you tell me who's the gym leader of Lavender Town? And who are the 3 main ghost Pokemon that our heroes meet in Lavender Town? Comment below if you know. Whew, y'all, today has been quite a day. Like, it was steady at work today. It was not busy at all. It was real steady. I had a lot of fun with my coworkers, and I hope that everybody is enjoying this lovely Saturday night. I hope that we are all doing our best to be good to one another, and, you know, just try to take one step at a time. Which brings me to my next point. I got my tea here. So if anybody was watching yesterday, which that would have been Friday, the day after the Thanksgiving, I was asking about any books that were similar to the Pirates of the Caribbean or inspired Pirates of the Caribbean, which is kind of tough because the movies are based off of the Disney ride that was developed, and that ride itself is based off of a concept that was made by one of the Imagineers. But I did find out that the movie Pirates of the Caribbean On Stranger Tides is based off of a book by Tim Powers called On Stranger Tides. So I looked that up. That's another book I'm looking at, like pirate-themed stories. Then there's Vampirates, which I forgot I read that in middle school. Awesome book. And then there is the Crispin books by Avi. Those are really good. And then there's Bloody Jack, which is a 12-book series story about a young woman who wants to be a pirate and disguises herself as a young man and gets pretty high up the ranks with his antics, because nobody knows that Jacqueline is actually a girl in disguise. It's actually really interesting. And then I looked that up, and then I thought about the usual suspects like Treasure Island, Swiss Family Robinson Crusoe. If anybody has any really good pirate-themed novels for young adults, let me know and I will read them for story time. Also, while I am here, I can show you what we're reading for Christmas. So, Christmas of last year, we started off with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe as my Christmas wintry themed book. But this year, it's going to be a tad bit different. It's a classic story. It's one of my favorite books of all time. Peter Pan. Now, if you look closely, the cover has quotes from the book, all printed on the front. I'm not sure if it's going to show you in the camera because it's going to be backwards on my end, but it might be frontwards on your end. But yeah, Peter Pan is what we will be reading for the holiday season. And I will get some shorter holiday-themed books, which, even though this isn't a holiday-themed book, I did get the Frog and Toad collection. Does anybody remember reading these books? Which, those who don't know, there is a fun fact about this book. I'm not gonna... The author and the original concept of what this book was based off of, these series of books, because I read Frog and Toad growing up. If you know, you know. Comment below. But yeah, Frog and Toad. It's got like... Yeah, 4 full stories. And this is its 50th anniversary. It's pretty hefty, too. Gosh, I remember reading these all the time. That and Little Bear. Little Bear also was a really good children's book. And Amelia Bedelia. A couple of people have asked me to read those for story time, which that would be a treat. That actually was my oldest brother's favorite storybook character as a kid. Amelia Bedelia. Somebody was asking me to read Jenny V. Jones. You couldn't pay me enough. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, y'all. Like, I understand that Jenny V. Jones is a well-beloved children's book series. The only one I like is the Jenny V. Jones Throws a Sleepover. That was the first book of that series I was introduced to, and the one that really stuck out in my mind. But yeah, in the springtime we'll probably switch it up and go through all the... Yeah, we'll do all the Beverly Cleary books. That'll be fun. Ramona Quimby, Henry Huggins, Ribsy, Ramona Beezus. We could totally do that. That'd be a lot of fun. I loved reading Ramona Quimby growing up on my own. Hilarious stories. Oh gosh, so many good memories. Let me have a sip of my tea. Much better. Without further ado, we will begin. Chapter 2. Matthias screamed aloud with fright inside the cat's mouth. It was sloppy and hot, pink and black, smelling indescribably and seemingly full of huge yellow teeth. Ptuh! Puh! The marmalade cat spat the young mouse out upon the barn floor. He lay wet and sticky, quivering all over, dust and straw clinging to his fur. Instinct warned Matthias to lie inert and play dead. He had no chance to make a run for it, surrounded as he was by the cat's paws. He could not stop his body from quaking badly. He lay staring into the feline eyes, great twin pools of turquoise flecked with gold. The cat stared back at Matthias in disgust. Disdainfully, it wiped a fastidious paw across its soiled tongue and spat as it was trying to get rid of a horrible taste. Ugh! I simply cannot abide the taste of mouse! Filthy little vermin! One can never tell where they've been. The cat's voice, though cultured, was a highly ready tenor. It would have sounded comical under different circumstances. Matthias lay as still as possible. The marmalade cat prodded him with an indolent paw. Oh, get up, you disgusting little beast! I know you're not dead. Slowly, the young mouse rose to his feet. The cat seemed uninterested in him, in a possible food source. Matthias's legs were shaking so much that he had to sit down again. They stared at each other. Matthias could think of nothing to say. The cat spoke again. This time its voice was indignant. Well, have you nothing to say for yourself, mouse? Where are your manners? Don't you think you should apologize for leaping into my mouth like that? Matthias managed to stand up. He bowed shakily. I beg your pardon, sir. It was purely accidental. I fell, you see. Please accept my humble apologies. I'm Matthias of Redwall. I accept it. Oh, excuse me. And I surely hope I've not disturbed you in any way. The cat sniffed distantly. Yes, at least you seem to have some sort of decent upbringing, Matthias of Redwall. I accept your apology. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Squire Julian Gingervere. Pleased to meet you, Squire Julian, said Matthias politely. The cat yawned regally. You may call me Julian. The title is hereditary. I never wanted it. Squire of what? A broken-down, ramshackle farm building and a stretch of river over yonder? One has no real friends, no trusty servants, not even a mate, for that matter. I suppose the Gingerville line will become extinct when I die. Matthias could not help feeling a certain amount of sympathy for the lowly aristocrat. At least you seem to lead a peaceful life, he said hopefully. Oh, spare me your platitudes, mouse, Julia replied in a world-weary voice. What would you know about loneliness and try to preserve one's standards in a decaying world? I say, do you think you could manage to clean yourself up a bit? You look like an absolute fright, standing there all covered in dust and straw. And while you're doing that, maybe you'd like to explain how you came to be sneaking around my barn? As Matthias brushed himself down, he related the object of his mission. Julian looked down at him in surprise. Captain Snow, eh? That old maniac. I forbid him the use of my barn, you know. What a thoroughly dreadful bird. He eats anything that moves or crawls. Atrocious table manners, too. All that regurgitating of bone and fur. Yuck! Could you tell me where I might find them, please? Matthias asked. Certainly, replied Julian. Snow lives in a hollow tree these days. I'll stretch a point and take you there. But please don't expect me to introduce you or even talk to him. When I barred Snow from here, we had a dreadful quarrel. Things were said that cannot be rescinded. I vowed that day never to speak to that old owl for as long as I live. Matthias sensed that Julian and Snow had once been good friends. Maybe the rift in their relationship was the cause of Julian's present state of fatalism and gloom. He decided wisely not to pursue the matter further at that moment. Matthias riding a cat's back was a new and unusual experience for Matthias, although he took great care to disguise it. Julian was quite an observant creature. As he strode with an easy grace across the farmyard, he remarked idly, Your friends the shrews are out in force today. Ignorant little things. They think I can't see them. Give Loggalog and Gowsome a message from me, will you? Tell them it is quite safe to come into the barn for hay and other items. Snow doesn't roost there anymore. Goodness knows I certainly won't hurt them. My diet consists of herbs, grasses, and an occasional fish from the river. I gave up red meat years ago. You might also mention that if they must come into my barn, would they please desist from angering and fighting and too much? There's nothing quite as upsetting as quarrelsome little shrews disturbing one's meditations. Matthias agreed to convey the message to the gorilla shrews. They had arrived at a small, overgrown orchard. Julian halted within 20 paces of a stunted oak. As he bade Matthias climb down, he cautioned him. You probably can't see Captain Snow, but he's watching us. I can tell when he's at home. Be extra careful, Matthias. The old glutton will more than likely eat you on sight. Typical of an owl. Well, I'm off now. If you get the chance, say Squire Gingerville said that he most assuredly admit he was in the wrong and apologize. Only then can we resume our friendship and live together in the barn. Goodbye, Matthias, and do take care. Goodbye, Julian, and thank you. Matthias called after the retreating figure of the last survivor of the Gingerville dynasty. The young mouse unpinned Basil's medal from his tunic. He ventured cautiously forwards, holding it aloft. If Julian said that Captain Snow was about, then it must be so. Which, pausing for a second, if we get to this point, because I'm going to read Peter Pan after we're done with this. After Peter Pan, if y'all want to read the next book in this series, which technically is the prequel to this book. Okay, so the Redwall books by Brian Jacques are publication-wise in a certain order, but chronologically they're in another order. Just like the Chronicles of Narnia, even though technically The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is the first published book of the 7 books in the Chronicles of Narnia, chronologically, The Magician's Nephew is the first one. See what I'm getting at? So, technically speaking, the very first book, and correct me if I'm wrong for those who are fans of the series, is Martin the Warrior, then the book Mossflower, which is the prequel to this book, Redwall, and then after this book is the sequel, which is Matameo, who is, well, I'm not going to say who it is. Just know that it's Basically, Julian is pretty important in this plot, so please remember him if we do go on to the next book, which is technically Moss Flower. An unearthly screech shattered the silence, followed by a rush of wings. The owl swooped out of nowhere straight for Matthias. Ducking and weaving as Basil had taught him, Matthias waved the metal and yelled at the top of his voice, "Truce! Truce! Basil Staghair sent me here! I claim a truce!" He was knocked flat upon his back. Massive needle-pointed talons tore the metal from his grasp. Captain Snow landed in front of Matthias, raising the dust with his vast wings. The young mouse found it hard to believe that such an awesome and impressive bird existed. Captain Snow stood hugely tall with an incredible wingspan. The owl's pure white plumage was broken only by a few brown bars on the wing and some dark spots on the crown. He had 6 dangerous talons in front, 2 at the back of his legs, and a sharp, heavily curved beak. His eyes were colossal. 2 golden orbs with circular black centers. Matthias continued ducking and weaving, conscious that his life hung by a thread. Captain Snow flicked out a talon. Matthias dodged nimbly aside. "State your name and rank! Who gave you my medal?" snapped the owl in a flat, hard voice. Still moving quickly and panting for breath, the young mouse gasped. "Matthias Mouse, warrior of Redwall Abbey! The medal belongs to my friend Basil Staghair. He sends his compliments, Captain, sir." "Stand fast!" snapped the captain. Matthias stood rigid. The owl's talons started to inch forwards as if they had a life of their own. The young mouse moved steadily backwards, away from the talons. Captain Snow licked saliva from the edges of his beak. It was plain that he desperately wanted to eat Matthias. "What did the cat say to you, Mouse?" he rasped. "Did he mention me?" Matthias repeated the message from Julian. "Squire Gingervin says, sir, that if you were to admit yourself in the wrong and apologize to him, then you could both be friends and live in the barn again." As he spoke, Matthias had been moving away from the seeking talons. On a sudden instinct, he dived to one side as the owl pounced. He skipped and ran on a zigzag course away from the murderous bird. Bilked of his target, Captain Snow madly tore the grass and scattered dust. All at once, he wheeled about and flew upwards, perching at the entrance to his nest hole in the studded oak. "All right, you can stop running away now, little warrior. Come here. I want to talk to you." Matthias stood a safe distance away from the tree. Captain Snow shifted from one foot to the other, muttering huffily. "Me? In the wrong? Never! I won't apologize to that cat. I refuse to!" When the owl had finished arguing with himself, Matthias called out, "Captain Snow, sir, there is a question that I must ask you." The great snowy owl beckoned towards his hole with a sweeping wing. "Listen, Mouse, you can't stand down there shouting up at me. Why not come into my nest? Then we can chat together in comfort." Standing on tiptoe, Matthias could catch a glimpse of the nest. The walls were lined with all types of fur, shrew, mouse, vole, even rat. The skulls and bones of small creatures were hung up as macabre decorations, which is one of my favorite words, macabre. So it's spelled M-A-C-A-B-R-E, but the R is silent. Macabre. And it also comes from one of my favorite I think it's a viola piece. Dance of the Macabre. It's a really great piece. I'll have to play it. So, you know what? While we're here, we're just gonna go ahead and play it because it's one of my favorite pieces. Yes. Oh, it's such a wonderful song, y'all. Okay, so anybody of my generation or older will probably recognize the song. But children, this is a song, an orchestral piece that I heard the first time listening to Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce on the radio adaptation of Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, which we will get to a point where we will read those stories at some point. It starts off pretty low, so I do apologize. There it is. And they have used this song in several films, commercials, TV shows, movies, but I know this song as the introductory music for what I imagine Sherlock Holmes would walk out on. Oh. The horns, we gotta have the woodwinds. Matthias smiled nervously. If you don't mind, Captain, I think I'd prefer to stay where I am. The captain cackled raucously and pointed at Talon. So you'd prefer to stay where you are, sir? Well, I don't blame you. Right, out with it. What's this question you want to ask me? Do you know of Asmodeus the giant adder, and where might I find him, sir? Matthias called boldly. The owl preened his breast feathers. He cocked his head on one side. I know of everything that moves within my territory, Mouse. Yes, I do know of Asmodeus. I also know where he calls home. Why do you ask? Because the adder has something that belongs to our abbey. An ancient sword, sir, Matthias replied. Ah, the sword, said the owl. I remember the night he passed here carrying it. You'll never get that sword from Asmodeus. A puny little mouse like you. The adder has magic in his eye that would freeze you like a statue. Ha! I wish mine could. Matthias felt his temper rising. He shouted angrily at the self-opinionated bird. I don't care if he's got magic eyes, poison teeth, coils of steel, or whatever. I mean to have that sword. I'll steal it from the snake or fight him for it. If I have to, I'll... The rest of Matthias's words were drowned out by the hysterical screeching laughter of the owl, who nearly fell from his perch with merriment. He blinked tears from his eyes. You what? Did I hear what you'd say? You'd find Asmodeus. You. Oh, little mouse, run away and play before I crack a wing laughing. Oh, dearie me. Are you sure you have been drinking old apple brandy? A mouse fighting an adder. Oh, by now I've heard everything. Captain Snow laughed helplessly. Matthias held up challengingly. Ha! I'll bet you couldn't defeat Asmodeus! The owl wiped his tears from his eyes and a snowy wing as he hooted. I've never tried, and I wouldn't relish the prospect, little one. The snake and I probably both end up dead. Matthias called mockingly. That's because you're afraid. Look, I'll bet I'll fight Asmodeus and win too. Bet you won't. Bet I will. Bet you anything you won't. Matthias pointed at the metal in Captain Snow's talons. Betcha that metal that I will. The captain flung the metal backwards into his nest. Done! Hold on, Owl, Matthias shouted. What are you putting up as a wager? The metal is not yours. You gave it to Basil Stagger. Spreading his wings to their incredible length, Snow screeched. I'll bet anything, whatever you say, Mouse. Matthias nodded cunningly. Oh, I don't want to take everything you own. Let's just say that you guarantee to return my medal and make a few little promises. Again, the owl had difficulty in controlling his unbridled hilarity. The nerve of him! Oh, all right, my little warrior. It's a bet. Name your promises. Right, said Matthias solemnly. You must promise on your oath that if I win, you'll never eat another mouse or shrew of any type. Agreed, chortled the owl. In fact, I'll go even further. I'll promise you that if you defeat the snake, I'll admit I was wrong to that stuffy old cat. I'll even apologize to him on bended knees. So there. On your word as a captain, Matthias pressed. The owl held out a wing and leg as he recited.
I swear by my captaincy and by my illustrious ancestors Nyctia and Glacier that I, Captain Snow, will return the medal and clear to my oath if you should win against Asmodeus.
The owl broke into laughter again.
This is the easiest bet I've ever made. I'll be like taking the wings off a dead butterfly.
Maybe to you, sir.
But not to me,
Matthias countered.
Now tell me where I may find Asmodeus, Captain. The old sandstone quarry, the owl replied. You'll have to cross the river. There are caves in the quarry, passages too. Explore them. You won't find Asmodeus until you're least expecting him. But then it'll be too late. You'll be deader than an icicle in hell. Goodbye, mouse.
Matthias turned his back upon the snowy owl and strode off with a string of taunts ringing in his ears.
Nice to have my medal back, jeered the owl. I'll think of you when I wear it. You should have let me eat you. It'd save you the journey to the quarry. Oh, I almost forgot. You won't be able to give the ham my best wishes. You'll be stuck inside the snake.
Matthias walked onwards, ignoring the cruel jibs of the owl through the farmyard and across the grassland, not stopping until he arrived at the fringe of Mossflower Wood. Which also, this is one of my favorite orchestral pieces too, by Rachmaninoff. It's Piano Concerto number 2 in C minor, Opus number 18. Which, fun fact, children, the orchestra has both stringed instruments and wind instruments and brass instruments. But, fun fact, the piano is not a part of the orchestra, which is really sad because the piano is an incredible instrument. They have what are called piano concertos, and concertos are specific musical pieces written to showcase a specific instrument. So a piano concerto is where the piano is the star of the show, while the orchestra is the accompaniment. So you mostly hear the piano playing and the occasional strings and whatnot in the background. See, we learn something every day. Not stopping until he arrived at the fringe of Mossflower Wood, the shrews broke cover and milled about noiselessly with their endless questions. Ha! So you got back there. Why didn't Snow eat you? Bet you've never seen an owl that size before, eh? What news of Poison Teeth? Did you find out where he is? Don't just stand there. Tell us! Tell us! Fierce quarreling broke out. Swords were being drawn as Matthias sought out Log-a-Log and took the black stone from him. Shut up and stop fighting, you hooligans, or you'll get to know nothing! Matthias bellowed. An expectant hush descended upon the union members of the Gorilla Shrews of Mossflower. Matthias found it hard to keep the contempt out of his voice. I found Captain Snow. Actually, I was led to him by Squire Julian Gingervere. Does that name ring any bells? There was an embarrassed shuffling in the ranks of the listeners. Many turned their eyes to the ground, particularly Gaussum and Log-a-Log. Matthias folded his paws. He stared about in disgust. Oh, yes. I'd just like to thank you all, especially you, Gaussum and Log-a-Log. What a sly, nasty, despicable thing to do. Send me into that barn without a single word of warning about the cat. Log-a-Log ripped the cloth band from his brow and flung it down. He took the stone up in his paw. Matthias, I speak not only for myself, but for all the Gorilla Union. We are very sorry. You must believe that. It completely slipped our minds. We forgot about the cat. You see, we are shrews, not only by name, but also by nature. We argue, quarrel, bicker, and fight so much amongst ourselves that we lose sight of the important issues. That is the way it is with us. Please accept our apologies, my friend. Matthias retrieved the stone. I forgive you this once. You say you are shrews, and you call me friend. You tell me that you forget. Let me tell you, I am a Redwall warrior. I'll always remember who my friends are, and I'll never forget an injury done to me. However, we will say no more of this. You must listen to me now. What I have to tell you is of great importance. It can change the life of every shrew here.
Captain Snow has told me that Asmodeus lives in the old stone quarry across the river. He has given me his promise on oath. If I defeat Asmodeus, the owl will never again take the life of a shrew." When the astonished hubbub had died down, the young mouse continued, "Think about it, gorilla shrews. It would be a double blessing for you. With Asmodeus dead and Captain Snow held to his oath, you can live in safety from both. While I'm on the subject, my friend Julian the cat is quite harmless. He will not hunt you. Anytime you need something from the barn, you have his permission to take it, providing you do so quietly, with no fighting or arguing. That is all I have to say to you, save for one thing. Lead me to the quarry."
Matthias stood patiently waiting. A subdued conversation went on all about him. Surely they could not refuse so generous an offer. He tried hard to pick up the threads of talk. Some seemed all for it, but others were apparently reluctant to trust his word. Finally, a small, militant-looking shrew came forward and picked up the stone. He addressed Matthias in a very official manner. "Our rules say that the quarry across the river is not in true territory, mouse. Therefore, we cannot go with you." Log-a-Log sprang forward and dealt the speaker a mighty blow, laying him flat on his back.
"You cowardly, ungrateful little fool!" cried Log-a-Log. "How can you say such a thing after this warrior is trying to do for us?"
Gaussum grabbed the stone from the ground.
"Stop, Log-a-Log! You have no right to strike a comrade! He was only stating the facts! Our guerrilla union rules clearly state that no member can be forced to venture beyond official shrew boundaries."
Before Log-a-Log had a chance to reply, a riot broke out. Shrews began kicking, punching, arguing, screaming, wrestling, and shouting. The edge of Mossflower Wood was in pandemonium. Matthias held up the stone and tried shouting about the melee. His voice was lost in the uproar. Angrily, he grabbed the nearest shrew and shouted at him,
"Listen, you! Tell me which direction the river is, or else!"
The struggling creature pointed a paw to the northeast, before wriggling from Matthias's grasp to dive headlong into the fray. You ever seen those clouds in cartoons where like people are fighting in the cartoon and like a cloud of dust, you see hands and feet coming out? That's basically what's happening. They're all in a dog pile. They're all in a brawl. It's great. I mean, it's not great, but it's comical. Fury took hold of the young mouse. He waved the stone and cried out,
"Go on! Fight then, you little fools! You and your bossy little union! I don't need any of you! I'll go it alone!"
And he hurled the stone with a mighty effort. It flew off over the heads of the rioters and disappearing into the wood. Matthias turned on his heel and stormed off towards the river. I need my keyboard back. I need to learn how to play this. Chapter 3. An air of apprehension lay across the camp in the meadow. Cheese Thief was dead, pierced by an immense arrow and dressed in Clooney's armor. He lay amid the wreckage of the leader's tent. Not one of the horde dared go near the gruesome scene lest they be found in position of blame upon Clooney's return. Constance peered agitatedly over the parapet. Something was not quite right. She felt it in her nostrils. The Badger's worst suspicions were confirmed by the sight of Clooney crossing the road and heading back into the meadow. Constance watched him leap across the ditch. There could be no doubt about it. That rat was definitely Clooney the Scourge. She had killed the wrong rat. Clooney had left his picked band back in the woodlands. They knew what they had to do. It would take a bit of time, but it was a sound, workable plan. Striding swiftly over the meadows, some sixth sense told Clooney that all was not right. His one eye scoured the area. There was the horde, gathered together at the far end. But what had happened to his tent? Clooney could vaguely discern a huddled figure tangled in the wreckage. Speculation was useless. He speeded up his pace. Or sped up his pace. Well, it's written speeded, but semantics. Fangbird met him halfway. Clooney held up a claw, silencing him. He would get to the bottom of things without stuttering excuses. He kicked the tent folds aside, revealing Cheese Thief's stricken face. The great arrow shaft protruded from the ruined armor, his war gear. Clooney glanced backwards and forwards from the abbey to the body. He took it in at quick rate all that had happened. The big badger was peering over the wall. It was her doing. Clooney's brain raced ahead. On the far end of the meadow, the horde were looking decidedly uneasy. A mistake had been made. The arrow was meant for him. The warlord's fertile mind suddenly came up with an idea of how to turn the situation to his own advantage. Fangbird was, to say the least, surprised. Clooney clapped him heartily on the back and led him across to where the rest of the horde waited apprehensively. Clooney laughed aloud to put them at ease. He winked his eye roguishly. "Well, I see my little scheme worked out just fine. We got the dirty traitor, didn't we, Fangbird, my old mate?" Fangbird was completely baffled, but he knew better than to disagree. "What? Of course we did, Chief." Clooney nodded over where the dead body lay. "Did you see that? Well, let it be a warning to you all. Ha! I knew what was going on with Cheese Thief. Didn't anyone see him at the battering ram last night, acting all high and mighty?" There was a general murmur of agreement. Most of the rats had been pressed into volunteering as ram carriers by the ambitious Cheese Thief. "Aye, we saw him, Chief." Chucking his weight about, shouting orders, he kept me on that ram for 2 hours. "Yes, you'd have thought he was the commander of the horde." "Exactly," Clooney shouted. "I'd had my eye on Cheese Thief for quite a while. He was doing a fair piece of ordering about without my permission. Why, I bet he ordered some of you last around while I was gone." "He started shoving me around, Chief," murmured Darklaw indignantly. "It was do this, fetch that, jump to it. I'm using the Chief's tent. I think Cheese Thief was getting too big for his boots, Chief." Clooney threw a claw around the speaker's shoulder. "Thank you, Darklaw. You're an intelligent captain. You could see as well as I did that Cheese Thief was planning to take control of my trusted horde. Why else would he start using my tent and dressing up in my battle armor?" The soldiers nodded sagely to each other. Clooney was right. There was no fondness in the ranks for the dead, power-hungry bully. Clooney continued. "You see, I knew the badger and her friends were planning to kill me, so I thought I'd kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Fool them and save myself the trouble of having to execute Cheese Thief. In fact, I let the Redwall crowd do the dirty work for me. I didn't want any of my loyal soldiers to put in any trouble. I gave the traitor enough rope and let our enemies hang him." Clooney slapped his thigh and burst out laughing. The horde joined him, falling about with merriment at their chief's black joke. What a cunning idea! There was no doubt about it. The scourge didn't miss a single trick. And that, my children, is called misdirection. It's called a bluff. We'll talk about it another time. Back to the story. Clooney waved cheerfully to the distant figure of Constance on the wall. "My thanks to you, Badger!" he shouted. "You did a fine job!" Constance could not hear a thing from the distance of the ramparts, which was just as well in the circumstances. Clooney was almost jovial as he turned to the horde. "Well, my good warriors, has anything else happened while I was away?" Kilconey performed one of the most elaborate salutes. "The tunnel is going very well, Your Honor." Good, good. Anything else to report?" Mangefur and Scumnose piped up jointly. "We was out searching for dock leaves, Chief. Way out across those fields over there." Clooney halted them. He nodded to Scumnose. "You tell me." "Well, we was rooting about some hedges, Chief," said Scumnose, "and we found a whole tribe of dormice fast asleep. So we pounced on 'em and threw 'em up in a bunch. Nice big fat ones they are, Chief." Clooney interrupted. "Dormice, huh? You haven't killed them yet, I hope?" Scumnose shook his head vigorously. "Oh, no, Chief. We're keeping 'em nice and fresh in the ditch there. Do you want to see 'em? I think there's about 20 all told." "Good. You did well. I want them kept alive," muttered Clooney as he walked across to the ditch and peered down at the captives. The dormice were huddled miserably together. Their necks looped cruelly together on a rope. They whimpered fearfully at the sinister sight of Clooney the Scourge. "Which one of you is the leader?" he snarled.
A bedraggled youngish mouse held up a timid paw. I am, sir. My name is Plumpin. Please let us go free. We've done no harm to any living creature. Violence is against our nature. We silence! Clooney snapped, or I'll teach you what violence means. An anguished moan arose from the dormice laying in the ditch. Clooney cracked his tail. Cut out that cringing, he said contemptuously. You are my prisoners to do with as I like. Oh, don't worry. I won't let them kill you yet. I've got other more useful things in mind. You, Plumpin, or whatever your name is, tell your tribe that you won't be harmed as long as you do what I say. For the present, you are to stay down there under guard. Scumnose, Major! Yes, Chief? You two are responsible for these prisoners, said Clooney. See that no creature goes near them. Stand guard night and day. If just one of these dormice is missing, you'll both end up on a roasting spit. Is that clear? After Cheese Thief's carcass had been disposed of, Clooney sat beneath an awning that had been improvised from the damaged tent. He watched the armorer diligently repairing his prized war gear and fumed inwardly. His equipment had been battered. He had lost a valuable captain. The Redwall contingent had stolen a march upon him, and the battering ram had failed miserably. Once again, the thinking was left to him. The Horde were more concerned with licking wounds and feeding their stomachs. Strategy was not their responsibility. However, on reflection, the balance was beginning to swing in his favor again. He now had 3 possible keys to the Abbey. One was the tunnel. The rats in the mossflower wood were attending to a second scheme. And the third, Clooney glanced over to the ditch. The capture of the dormice would prove an even more devious avenue to the conquest of Redwall, provided he played his cards right. Early evening saw the attack upon the Abbey get underway once more. Jess Squirrel and Ambrose Spike had joined the ranks. First of all, I have to pause for a second. That was my foot adjusting on the seat. That was not gas. Just saying. That sound you heard. That was my foot adjusting on the seat. I had to clarify. Just had to make sure there was no thinking people had just passing the breaking wind on camera. I'm not doing that. I was just moving my foot. Jess Squirrel and Ambrose Spike had joined the ranks of archers. They popped up and down, selecting random targets. I don't like it, Jess remarked. Ambrose grunted as he released a feathered shaft at the ditch. Don't like what, Jess? The squirrel put aside her bow and sat down under cover of the parapet. They seem to have slackened off somehow, and we haven't seen much of Clooney lately. It's not like the Horde to behave in this way. Personally, I think there's something afoot that we don't know about. Winifred the otter was standing nearby. She slung a stone hard, nodded in satisfaction at the resultant scream, and joined the two friends. I'm inclined to agree with you, Jess. The scourge has probably figured some new move. This attack may only be a cover. By the way, is there any word from Formol and his crew? Oh, they've still got their ears to the ground, Ambrose said gruffly. Formol says they heard an odd echo. Nothing definite, though. Southwest corner is where he thinks they might surface eventually. Yes, I've heard that too, Jess agreed. We all have to arrange a warm reception for those filthy vermin when they show up. What baffles me, Winifred mused, is where young Matthias has got to. It's not like him to miss the chance of battle. Abbot Mortimer was on his rounds with food. He had been eavesdropping on the conversation and could not help commenting. Do you know, I was just thinking the same thing myself. But we give Matthias the benefit of the doubt and trust in his judgment. I've a feeling that he could be the salvation of us all. One thing you must rest assured of, whether that young mouse is all be concerned with the survival of Redwall in one way or another, I'm sure. Ah, well, Jess sighed as she picked up her bow and notched an arrow to it. We better make sure he has a home to come back to. On with the war, friends! The squirrel drew the bow full stretch and stood up. She paused a moment, peering along the Yule shaft, then released the string with a vibrant twang. Below on the edge of the meadow, a creature fell transfixed. One stoat less to carry out Clooney's commands.
And that is where we will end for tonight. I'll see you tomorrow with our continuation of Brian Jake's epic Redwall. Thank you for watching. John, Filler, Terry, Ashley, thank you for watching. I'll see y'all next time.